Science in the Outer Streams, and this is episode 3 of our show on Jiddu Krishnamurti. So this fellow was literally taken from poverty in India, became a ward / protege of the early officers of the Theosophical Society, was educated at Cambridge with his brother.
Right. Well, he wasn't really educated. They tried to put him into Cambridge, and he flunked out. He
flunked out?
Yeah. He said, I'm not interested in studies. He said, so other people, his brother was there. He and his brother went up were brought to England to be given an education. And his brother was a whiz. His brother got his degree in law, I think. But he tried it for a couple of semesters, and he was just bored. He says, you know, other people might enjoy reading books. That's their thing. It's not my thing. It's not what I'm interested in. And I'm sorry to disappoint you, Mama Besant, but it's just not my thing, you know.
Well, as a child, I read something one of the biographers said about him that they thought he was in fact retarded when he was in school in India.
Yeah, he wasn't. He just wasn't listen. He wouldn't listen to the teachers. Matter of fact, some of the description, if you see some of the photos of him as a child, he had this kind of otherworldly kind of awareness. Matter of fact, he says, ever since he as far back as he could remember, in some of the interviews people had with him, he says, as far back as I could remember, I've never been into trying to push myself forward on people. He says, you know, I've just been flowing with life. He says, I guess it's the way I was born, in the way that this particular entity was born. I'm probably different from other people. And he wasn't bragging. He simply said, this is the way it is. But I've never had any interest of pushing myself forward. I've only been concerned about living in truth and being with truth, and when I've spoken, it always is no plans, no thought beforehand. I just give what comes through me as I see what is happening, what I feel in the audience. That's how I speak and try to communicate in that way. So,
and this is so ironic that he had this very unsubstantial academic career, because I mean, you can through the magic of videotape, you can still see this man speaking with some of the greatest minds of the last century and blowing their mind, basically.
Well, like you mentioned, David Bohm was one of the most astute physicists, and in my estimation, probably one of the most profound physicists of this century. I think he went much further than Einstein or Heisenberg or any of the other thinkers I mean, they were all good physicists, but most of the physicists, the Nobel laureates, confessed at the end of their careers, there's people like Feynman and so on, we don't know what the hell it means. We know it works, but don't ask me what it means. Bohm was one of the few people that tried to put together something that made sense out of what is modern physics saying, the whole notion of indeterminacy, uncertainty, and so on. And when he read, actually, it was late in his life, I think it was in the 70s, that Bohm happened to be in a bookstore, read a book, saw it on a bookshelf. I think it was called The Awakening of Intelligence. He started paging through it. He said, my God, the known and the knower are one. It was one of the lines that Krishnamurti just happened to put it. And it was a thing that he had in all of his talks. It was a basic, constantly recurring theme that was just, that's the way reality is. You are one with the thing that you know. There's no difference between you and what you know when you really look at it closely. And Bohm said, why, this is what I've concluded to in my physics understanding. So he ran up and he said, where in the heck is this guy? And he located him, and they became fast friends, steadfast friends, very intimate friends, to the moment that Bohm died. Bohm, I think, or to the moment Krishnamurti died in '86, and Bohm, I think, died a year or so later. But they were like, say, Bohm was kind of the intellectual formulator in the stream of physics of these profound insights, and Krishnamurti is more the intuitive articulator of the same insights, but they kind of mesh. I think it's like left brain, right brain coming together, and they both had very good left brains and right brains, but it's just where that was emphasized in their personality that Krishnamurti seemed to have the deeper intuitions, which is why, and experiences, which is why I think Bohm was such a keen admirer of him. And Krishnamurti also was a keen admirer of Bohm because Bohm had all this academic knowledge, which he didn't have. He didn't begrudge him of it, but he felt that they complemented each other in an immensely important way. And that's why the later books of both Bohm and Krishnamurti, matter of fact, there's a very interesting series of dialogues, not very long, it was called with Bohm and Krishnamurti discussing, it's called The Ending of Time, which is a very, very insightful kind of book if you wanted to take a look at something there.
Yes, and you can, of course, see David Bohm and Krishnamurti speak, actually, if you can go find the videotapes and
sure.
through the Krishnamurti Foundation and that sort of thing. So here's this fellow that hit a jackpot from a lot of people's perspective. Is this poor child was suddenly propelled into this limelight, given these wonderful teachers, had an organization at his disposal, and chucked it all away. When he was, what, in his 30s? Early 30s?
He was about 29 years old.
29 years old. So he throws the whole thing away and says, stop this. But yet he's still remembered as a teacher. What happened after this that he still is known as a teacher?
Well, this is that he began to articulate what he was seeing, and he no longer felt any obligation to satisfy the terminology, the tradition that had been in the Order of the Star and the Theosophical.